So Hassan gets detained, and this dude isn't even saying anything detainee worthy. This is America. Hassan is detained or got detained. Freedom of speech is gone. One thing I will let you guys know, though, and this is why I speak directly to creatives and artists for real. This is our time to shine. Because you know all that literary work that we do, you know all of that philosophical work, all of that psychological work, all of that reading in between the lines, creating the lines to read in between, all of that storytelling, visionary, that complex thinking. This is going to be the only way we can share the truth and freedom of speech. You know what's interesting? A lot of you guys might not know this, but many indigenous tribes, they're not just indigenous. When I say that too, I'm speaking because of living in America. You have to study indigenous history. I don't even like saying indigenous American because there was a whole, literally, nations of peoples that knew nothing about what this fucking America term is before it was slapped onto them. So more times than not, I'm speaking about the research that I'm doing in North American, I hate even saying that, but like Western indigenous culture and then also African indigenous culture. But an interesting thing, because I'm seeing even the conversation about like black people having American slavery was the curse of Ham and we deserve to be enslaved to these people who went to Egypt and like literally went grave robbing and started eating mummies because they thought it was going to give them superpowers. But the point I'm trying to get to is most of our ancestors were so smart, not only like technologically, but they were so smart psychologically beyond any colonizer that came in to attack them or to steal from them. They said most of our truth, the most important truths and rituals that we share will be orally shared. And they will be gate-kept with our language. Gate-kept with something that you literally have to humble yourself to understand if you are coming from the outside, to learn, to actually care enough to understand it, to then infiltrate or manipulate. But these people, especially the colonizers who just like to grape and pillage everywhere they go, there is no appreciation for culture or appreciation for anybody that they dehumanize to that level. Because to dehumanize somebody to that extent, you have to look at them as some either docile, naive creature or some animal creature that is deserving of what you're imposing onto them. Or else you would, again, be the devil in the reality, and we would have to create a reality to cage you to protect the world from you, rather than caging the entire world to allow us to be exploited by your nasty ass nature. But what I'm trying to get to is something in this globalized colonialism trek. It was a means of finding what the gift, like what the power is that all of these groups and these people have that wear less clothes, that live with less shame, live with less hate, and share a lot more love with each other. How could they have what we don't have? But we go to these places, we steal everything, we destroy everything, we corrupt everything, we build it in our image, we indoctrinate everyone to follow our laws and our philosophies, and we still can never create the level of peace and happiness and joy that we continue to stumble across in all these places. And it's difficult for us to do that because we have to keep on justifying what we do to these people and exploiting these places by calling them savages, calling them ignorant, calling them animals, calling them See what I'm saying? You have to keep on project all these villainous terms and dehumanizing terms before you go do the dehumanizing, so it levels out when you start to judge it in history. Oh, that person did this, but to somebody who never even instigated it? Again, I'm getting a little far from the point, but I want to get back to this. The reason I'm starting to believe, and from the research I've done, so much of the important things that were shared in our cultures were orally shared were because if that information got into the wrong hands, it would be detrimental to the world. So if anybody could have access to that information, it would be the people in the community, the initiates of the community, or it would just simply die with the people. because it's a lot better to lose the depth of information and intelligence with the people who would actually be responsible for it than let anybody else even know the scope of the magic potential that could happen if you use this material reality properly. And that even doubles down to go into why I think as Africans and many indigenous pre-colonial tribes, they did wear less clothes, as it came into, or is attributed to, less shame and less hatred of the self, less hatred of other people, and a lower sexualization of other people's bodies for self-gratification, but also showing the freedom in self and expression and the love for the self and for the human that exists, that you are attached to, or your awareness is attached to in this experience. But most of, and this is the reason why I speak against Christianity so much, at least like Western and European Christianity, the one that's used to justify colonialism, because almost all of those books in there, if they weren't just made up, they were stolen from other people's cultures. And then at the same time as they've been stolen from other people's cultures, other people's religions, and then the colonizer replaces all the heroism or the heroic stories with himself, while then placing the people that they stole the stories from in the positions of the demons, to then reverse engineer history and then get the descendants of the colonized people to think that they need to hate themselves in order to gain the validation of the person who cut them off from their history and destroyed their psyche. And does anybody remember that Nicene Creed, or like that Nicene meeting of Nicene, whatever, where like those religious leaders, mind you, most of which, if not all of them, were white men, decided to get together and decide what the fuck the Bible was going to be? Imagine if me and all my homies just got together and said, you know what? We are going to decide what we like out of the Bible as it exists today. And then we're only going to move forward with what we like. And then we're also going to write in stuff that we like that probably protects us and the power that we have. And then we're going to force everybody to live by this or literally die by going against it. Yeah, that is somehow going to be a pure account of like the most holy teaching in the world. I guarantee you that will. Me and all my homies, bro. Me and all my sick homies who hate following rules, bro, and love abusing power. We are going to somehow abandon our own narcissism in writing the most influential, pivotal, psychological sedative in the entire history of storytelling and the entire history probably of modern human history. Yeah. And we're not going to create this or leverage this to almost make permanent the amount of power that we have. Like, we live in the 21st century and there is still a queen and king of fucking England, bro. Like, are you fucking kidding me right now? So let me conclude this, because we could have a 10-hour long conversation about this, but the point I'm trying to get to is that the ancestors knew, just because they weren't going to speak and share or even write down our gifts and our magic, they didn't have to write it down for us to remember it in this reality, because they can hold on to memories through our genes. This is why it's so important for Black people to hate ourselves, to hate each other, and to make sure that we're literally destroying each other for the sake of being validated by the master who looks like this and nothing like us. And this is why you see me speaking about I don't even want to call it self-improvement, but self-acceptance to self-actualization. Because self-acceptance, especially as marginalized people in a land that hates us, yet wants to use and exploit every drop of our soul, we realize that when we take the time and have the presence to go within to the depth of our infinity, all the information we need, and I'm not saying like hiding in ourselves, literally freeing ourselves from the limiting beliefs, freeing ourselves from what the trauma and the suffering that the oppressor has put on us, freeing us from the limitations that our current circumstances and environment are trying to impose on us, for the sake of knowing that we are infinite. And the only limitation we have is this body, and is our inability to surrender to that infinity. And all the magic, all the gifts that were stolen or corrupted from our people live inside of our heart and our body and our soul, and we have to tap into that shit. The only way the oppressor can stop us from accessing this is by fucking our mind up with psychological warfare.